from our districts at home. This is Kansas Farm Bureau, and they're watching the legislature in action. So we're really happy that you've come to local government here and watch how the first step of the budget process works. So thank you very much. And if wave to us so we can see who you all are. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you. So if we remember, we've done these budgets in the past, and for the newcomers, we've had 18 assigned to us. This year we have, do we have 6, Randy? 6. So we don't have to do 2 or 3 minutes a piece. We have probably 10 minutes for the presentation and then questions, so we can get them all in because they're on deadline to the big budget committee. So we're just doing our work here, and I like to remind myself when we do these are fee funds. This is the agencies asking how they want to spend the money, telling us what they're doing with it and how they want to move forward. So this is their own money that they raised with fees. So first up, we have the Kansas Public Disclosure Commission, and we all would have known that as the Ethics Commission before, so a new name. And we have, do we have Joe? We have, there, oh, come on up and introduce yourself, Ariana, and you do your presentation. We'll pause for questions for you, and then we'll have a motion to accept it and move on to the next. So good morning, Ariana. You go right ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Committee. My name is Ariana Waddell, and today I'll be presenting the budget for the Kansas Public Disclosure Commission, formerly the Governmental Ethics Commission. As the Chair mentioned, I'm going to note that the agency is in the audience. I'm the Acting Executive Director. So the Kansas Public Disclosure Commission FY 2026 revised estimate totals $889,000 in all funds, which represents less than 1% of the statewide total expenditure. The state general funds expenditure for FY 2026 are requested at $589,000, which is also less than 1% of the statewide SGF totals. If you could please turn your attention to page 3 of the budget summary. The budget and policy snapshot summarizes the SGF reappropriation, including the agency lapse for FY 2026. And it also shows the legislative pay plan. And I also want to note, before I move on, you should have a long piece of paper that shows the agency requests in comparison to the Special Committee on the State Budget recommendation. I'm going to note that the Special Committee on the State Budget, they lapsed all the reappropriations part of the global motion. And also, you should have a yellow sheet in front of you as well, and that shows a comparison between the GovRec and the state budget recommendation. The governor recommended adding those reappropriations back. Okay, and if you could turn your attention back to the budget summary, on page 4, it shows the summary of expenditures, including the 10-year history. A note for FY 2021, the all fund increase that was related to a conversion of a part-time attorney to a full-time attorney, a full-time position. For FY 2024, the legislator added about $23,000 for a salary adjustment. And for FY 2026, we see a change from the FY 2025 actual that's related to the agency having vacancies. If you could please turn your attention to page 6 of the budget summary. I'm going to note that the agency only has state operations. The expenditure by category table shows that 79.9% of the agency's budget is in salary and wages for FY 2026, and about 19.1% is in contractual services. If you could please turn your attention to page 7 for the expenditures by classification. Once again, we notice for the salary wages for the fiscal, for FY 2025, the salary wages are down due to vacancies for FY 2025. I'm going to note for the fee other services, that include expenditures such as the monumental building charge, their counting, also data access fees for like Westlaw, R-Base, and counting, IT administration, Office 365, and the cultural conference registration. And for fees, professional services, that includes expenditures such as the conflict counsel with attorney, reporting fees, the cultural membership, Sunflower State, and some newspaper subscriptions. For rents, that includes the building rent, water cooler expenses, copier and database storage, and Adobe licenses and employee parking. If you could please turn your attention to page 9 for the fee fund analysis on the Kansas Public Disclosure Fee Fund. I'm going to note that fees for that fund are candidate filing fees, lobbyist registration fees, and political action committee fees and registration. But you will find more on the fees at the end of the budget summary. That shows a detail of how much the fees are on page 15. For the FY 2026 analysis, if you could please turn your attention to page 10. The fiscal 2026 approved budget for the Kansas Public Disclosure Commission, including reparations, totals about $899,000 with 8.5 FTE positions. This includes about $566,000 in state general funds and about $322 for the fee fund. I'm going to note that the agency revised estimate reflects a net decrease of about $23,000. And also note that the agency does not have a supplemental request for FY 2026. For item 1, the approved budget, that included the 1.5% SGF lapse in the appropriations and the 2025 pay plan. For item 2, shows the SGF reappropriations. That's $23,000, and that the unspent fund would be used for computer equipment purchase, office equipment purchase. If you turn your attention to page 11, also for increased operating costs, such as lease payments and the monumental building surcharge, and also for professional development for the cultural conference and newspaper subscriptions, and the remaining funds would be used to offset fluctuations operating expenditures. And item 3, once again, is the 1.5% lapse for SGF reappropriations. And for all other adjustments, the agency revised estimate for FY 2026 includes, once again, a decrease of $23,000 or 2.6% below the approved amount. And that includes the removal of the $8,400 SGF lapse that was applied to the FY 2026 approved budget, which that contributes to like a technical adjustment between the approved and the revised estimate. There's also decrease in salary wages, primarily related to reduced employer contributions for health insurance, so employee selections. The agency revised estimate also includes other lower fringe benefit costs. And there's also the decrease is offset by increase in contractual services for database access fees, postage, travel, and subsistence, and new office furniture. Any questions for FY 2026, Madam Chairwoman?
I think I'll have you go ahead and go on to 27 as well. And we have just a few minutes. And Ariana, did you tell me if there's someone from the agency here to also speak for questions?
Madam Chairwoman.
Yes, wonderful. She's waving behind you. Thank you. We'll bring you up for questions also, if that's all right. Thank you. You go right ahead.
If you could please turn your attention to page 13 for FY 2027 analysis. The FY 2027 approved budget for the Kansas Public Disclosure Commission totals about $885,000 with 8.5 FTE positions. This includes approximately $554 from the SGF and about $330,000 for the fee fund. The agency revised estimate reflects a net increase of about $8,920, including an increase of about $17,688. And the increase in SGF is related to the legislative pay plan. For the all other adjustments, that includes reduced employer contributions for health insurance, similar adjustments in the contractual services is with an increase out-of-state meal and lodging for the cultural conference, and there's an increase of about $840 for the computer hardware. I'm going to once again note that the fees are on page 15. Any questions on FY 2026 and FY 2027, Madam Chairwoman?
Thank you, Ariana. What if we bring up the commission so they could speak just for a few minutes to see if there's any questions for both of you together? That we have 3 more to do, so we'll need to be pretty succinct with that. But if you have any questions, we can move forward. So can we have? So don't leave, Ariana. So come on up and introduce yourself, and we'll put your name in the minutes. So thank you for coming.
I'm Jennifer Schneider. I'm acting executive director. I just assumed this position in December, and hopefully it's very temporary. So anyway, I will answer questions as best I can. If I can't find something or I don't have it, I will get that information for you.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us. And committee, do you have any questions on the budget or for Jennifer? All right, so Senator Fascado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ariana and Jennifer. So my question is on page 15. So the candidate filing fee, I'm a little confused. So $650. If you could elaborate what that is for. So because it's not like my filing fee to run for state senate, so on page 15. Thank you.
Could that be statewide offices? And Jennifer, hop in.
Well, we get $50 of every candidate that falls under the jurisdiction of the Campaign Finance Act. So I'm not sure what the $650 is, unless that was, might have been some fees that came in at the beginning of this year. But prior to this, I'm not sure where that information came from, but we only get $50. So the filing fee tends to be, I know, is higher for senators and such, but most of that goes to Secretary of State's fund. We just get the 50 per each.
Gotcha. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Bowser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm on the page 11. I'm curious about your contractual services. I see that 26, we have a total increase of $5,231 for contractual services. Page 13 and 27, we have a total increase of $5,792 for contractual services. What are those contractual services? What are we paying for there?
And Jennifer, if you have a grasp on that, you sure could answer as well.
Madam Chairwoman and Senators, is this, is it looking above and beyond? Isn't it additional that you're seeing? I don't have that paperwork, but.
Yeah, again, I'm on page 11, about the third paragraph from the bottom.
Okay.
It says a total increase, this is for 26, a total increase of $52.31 for contractual services. And then on the next, on page 13, again, this is 27, total increase of $5,792. I'm just curious what those contractual services are.
Thank you. Madam Chairwoman and Senators, I believe it is for our rent. Our building was just assumed at the end of December by a new owner, and they have bumped our rent, and they're going to bump it again at the end of the year. So I believe those increases were both related to our rent increase.
Senator Petty.
So I want to ask you about the $23,589 that was deleted from your budget, but there is the recommendation in the governor's budget to reinstate that. And I know it was global, so, and that's just in 26, is that correct?
Madam Chairwoman and Senators, yes, I believe what it was the fiscal year 25 when it ended, we had 23,000 that was unused. It was due to vacancies of positions. It was reappropriated back to our office. Our then director indicated he was going to use it for computers and such. And then the global motion, I believe, is what's going to take that back. And perhaps the governor's office, I think they suggested no change and that they were willing to let it stay, but
And so that would then cover those things that are mentioned of the computers, the office expenses, and so forth. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And Senator Petty, since you're on Ways and Means, you can also follow this and follow up on with what we've discussed here. Thank you. Senator Reckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee recommend the FY 2026 and FY 2027 budget for the Kansas Public Disposal Commission as presented.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Senator Fascadeau, seconds. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say, oh, Senator Petty, did you have a question? Are you ready?
Right, so so the recommendation, I guess, is as of recommended by the Special Committee on State Budget. And I'm going to bring up the issue of the 23,212, the 23,000, make sure I've got the right figure here, $23,212 that had been not reappropriated. I do think we've just heard that their rent's going up, and that would be one area that would be covered under that $23,000. So I'm bringing that up.
Okay. Senator Fascadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for clarification from Senator Petty, so that was money that the governor originally appropriated and then it was removed. Could you explain your concern one more time? Thank you.
Okay, so no, that it was in their request, in their budget, and it was removed by the global actions of the Special Committee on State Budget, which affected all agencies. And for them, it was $23,212, correct? Am I correct? So I would recommend that we amend our motion and include that.
Would you like to do that, a substitute motion? Would I have a second? I'll withdraw your second on the first motion. Would I have a second on Senator Petty's motion? Second from Senator Clifford. So then, everyone clear with that? And then you can also take it from there in the Ways and Means Committee too, Pat, or Senator Petty, to discuss that as well. So, okay, we have a motion, second.
Question,
Senator.
Madam Chair, now does this become an enhancement, Senator Petty, or Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Senator Petty, I'm all right with your motion that you move it forward, and if you have discussion in Ways and Means to continue that conversation, you're in the right place to do that.
Right, of course, this was a global action that occurred prior to this coming back in session. So there are a number of agencies that are, will be asking for that. These funds that were already to be reappropriated. And I think I believe I've heard from the agency that there's justification for that reappropriation, that $23,212.
I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Well, let's vote on this. So all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no.
No.
Motion passes. All right, let's move on to the next one. And Connor, did I see you pop in? I did. I know you've been busy coming over to another one. You have Board of Barbering, and you probably have 3 or 4 minutes because we have to get these forward to the big budget. So you just go as quick as you can and we'll ask questions. And do you have someone from the agency here with you as well, way in the back? So wonderful. And we'll have you come up also and introduce yourself to answer questions. So, okay, take it away, Connor.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Connor Hughes. I'm a KLRD Fellow, and I'll be doing the Board of Barbering summary. So the Kansas Board of Barbering serves to protect the health and welfare of citizens frequenting barbering businesses in the state of Kansas through the enforcement of existing barbering statutes and sanitary regulations established for the barbering profession. KBOB administers and oversees all licensing tests in Kansas to ensure that all citizens practicing barbering are qualified and well-trained. The agency also conducts regular inspections on barbering businesses across the state to ensure all shops and barber colleges are properly licensed for operation and are adhering to and maintaining the sanitation standards set by the state. Underneath that, you'll see 2 tables. You'll see the all expenditures by fiscal year and version, and agency request as percentage of the statewide total. The Board of Barbering receives no SGF funds and makes up less than 1% of all funds. Flipping over to page 2, you'll see a 10-year expenditure table, both represented by a line graph and a specific dollar breakdown alongside the 5-year, 10-year, and 5-year and 10-year change, as well as the 3-year average. On page 3, you will see expenditures by major purpose from fiscal years 2018 to 2027. Underneath that, you will again see a specific dollar breakdown. It is worth noting that 100% of expenditures fall under the state operations category. Moving on to page 5, you'll see another expenditures by classification table under state operations. And again, you see the breakdown of each category with just over 60% falling under salaries and wages, just over 37% falling under contractual services, and the remainder falling under commodities. Moving over to page 6, you'll see expenditures by fund as well as a fee fund analysis. So the Board of Barbering Fee Fund provides financing for all agency operations. All revenue is derived from licensing and certification testing for practicing individuals and businesses in the state of Kansas. For health and safety reasons, barbering licenses are required for any individual or business seeking to practice the barbering profession in Kansas. If you'll flip over to the next page, you'll see a detailed breakdown of the fees that the agency charges. And then on the page after that, you'll see the fiscal year 2026 analysis. So the 2025 legislature passed and the governor enacted one bill appropriating and adjusting funding for state agencies. The approved budget includes salary increases for most state employees based on the Department of Administration's market survey for fiscal year 2026. For this agency, the increase is $3,278, all from the Board of Barbering Fee Fund. Underneath that, we see agency adjustments. The agency's revised estimate reallocates $167 from salaries to contractual services, but stays at the approved amount for fiscal year 2026. This is due to an increase in fees and planned repairs for passenger cars, which was offset by decreases in subsistence and travel expenses. And I'd be happy to take any questions, or I can move on to fiscal year 2027.
Why don't you go ahead and continue?
All right. If you'll flip over to the next page, you'll see the fiscal year 2027 analysis. So KSA 75-3717F requires select agencies of a primarily regulatory nature to submit a budget request for an additional fiscal year at the beginning of a biennium. The Board of Barbering is one such biennial agency and has an approved budget for fiscal year 2027. The legislature has approved $262,654, all from the Board of Barbering Fee Fund for fiscal year 2027. The only change that we see for fiscal year 2027 is relating to the 2025 legislative pay plan. The agency request matches the approved budget. The revised estimate increases salaries and wages by $1,450 and deletes $669 from contractual services as compared with the fiscal year 2026 agency request. This is a net increase of $781 above the fiscal year 2026 agency request. The adjustment was to incorporate changes necessitated by the 2025 legislative pay plan. And this concludes the fiscal year 2027 analysis, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Connor. That's bring up the agency. Can you introduce who's with you? And you can stand up for questions with Connor and tell us your name so we can put you in the minutes.
Yes, Madam Chair, committee. My name is Cassiopeia Capps. I'm the Executive Director for the Board of Barbering.
Welcome, Cassiopeia. I love your name. So, committee, do you have questions for Connor Cassiopeia? That's Senator Clays.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Listen, I have some concerns about both of these boards, so I'm just gonna put it all together. Kansas right now appears to be spending about $1.5 million a year running two boards whose main job is telling Kansas that they can't cut their hair until they've spent about $15,000 on tuition and sat in a classroom for about a year and a half. That's more training than we require for EMTs, and for what? It's a job that pays evidently on average, from what I can see, about $27,000 a year. So we're often asking young people, single parents, trying to change their careers to go to $30,000 in the hole before they can earn their first dollar. And I don't see how this is protecting the public. I have gotten bad haircuts before. I may be having one right now for what's that, as far as that's concerned. But I guess it feels like that this board is more protecting a guild. It's protecting barbers and cosmetologists at the expense of actually barbers and cosmetologists. Iowa just fixed this. The Governor Reynolds signed a bill in June that lets people start working right away after 2 hours of sanitation training. They learn on the job under supervision. They can get licensed if they want to. And I'd like to propose that we do the same thing, but go one step further, because evidently when I did some research on this, the money that goes to cosmetology, isn't from the SGA. It's got its own little thing. So instead of spending $1.5 million on bureaucracy, I'd like to spend it on opportunity. Keep $250,000 for the training program and basic inspections, and then take the rest of the $1 million and turn it into scholarships for low-income Kansans who want to enter the profession. Help them buying their starter kits, their clippers, their supplies. From my math, and I just did a quick back of the envelope here, but we'd have enough for 17,000 scholarships at $750 a year, or $750 each, and that's more than enough for every barber and cosmetologist in the state. It'd be a lot like the Kansas Promise. We'd require them to work in Kansas for 2 years. The investment stays here. No new taxes, no general fund impact, same fees, different purpose, opportunity instead of obstruction. Iowa has shown this can be done, and I think that Kansas should follow and maybe even do it better. So I have a proposal for an amendment. In fact, it's conceptual at this point, but I haven't had a chance to run it through the bureaucracy, so to speak. But if anybody's interested in hearing about it, I would be happy to take questions and explain it further, but I don't want to take up any more of our time.
Interesting thoughts, Senator Clay. Could that be a new bill with the idea of that we can maybe scope out next year, starting fresh with your new an idea, and then talk about the funding then?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I proposed it as an amendment, but it could be a bill. I mean, right now, Kansas law says that you can't touch a paying customer's hair without 1,200 hours of barber school or 1,500 hours of cosmetology school. And so this alternative, they would complete a 2-hour training on sanitation in Kansas law, and they could start working under supervision of a licensed barber or cosmetologist right away. And the shop would have to register with the state. We still have to keep some of the bureaucracy intact for sanitation standards and then, of course, have to tell the customers in writing that they are being served by a trainee. But after 2,000 hours of supervised practice, that's about a full year of work. They could sit for the licensing exam if they would like. They won't have to. They could just keep working under supervision indefinitely. Second, it would redirect the fees. The Board of Barbering and Cosmetology are funded entirely by licensing fees, no general fund money, so it would amend KSA 65817A and KSA 742704 and expand those fee funds, what those fee funds could be used for. So currently, the money can only fund the board's regulatory activities, and this would add new authorized purposes, providing us the sanitation training and the workforce scholarships. And then third, speaking of the workforce scholarships, it would create a new barbering and cosmetology workforce scholarship. To qualify, you would have to be a Kansas resident, demonstrate financial need, complete the 2-hour training, and then the scholarship would, of course, cover those costs. In exchange, you agree to work in Kansas for 2 years. If you leave early, you pay back with interest. Same structure as Kansas Promise, just keep that short. And since I'm right here at the end, I'll just go ahead and finish up and say fourth, it would right-size the boards. It doesn't abolish the boards. Someone needs to be to be able to register participation and develop the training, conduct inspections, administer the scholarships. But I just don't think we need 2 separate boards, $1.5 million of overhead to do that. I think consolidating those functions and putting the money back into individuals that might actually be able to provide services. And I know we've had issues in the fact with some of our minority community where, they want to braid hair and things of that nature. I would include that under this so that they don't have to go through cosmetology school to do something that maybe they've been doing their entire lives. Thank you.
I believe Senator Reichman has a question for Senator Clays.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for your study and going into this. I'm very interested in that. I think we need to do a bill. Right now, we're just kind of going over these budgets, and I don't see where that's going to work with the budget. But I'd be interested in making those changes, at least get a discussion and having a hearing and give both sides of it. But right now, we're just doing the budget request. Thank you.
Well, I apologize if this is out of order, but since this does impact the budget, the idea of approving a budget where I'm looking to overhaul the system, it seemed like this was the time to do it. This is my first year, so I apologize if I'm out of order, but I think this is. I appreciate you being at least somewhat on board, and I look forward to discussing this further.
Senator Clays, I believe that was a big deep dive, and it sounds. You've got a lot of it already figured out, and I'd love to see a bill on it too. In fact, it could be big enough to be an interim study too. So I would be interested in helping you look at that in depth, and if the committee is comfortable, if you have any questions for Connor or Cassiopeia, that we move on with this, send it to the big committee, and they can even have this discussion there too, if Senator Petty, if that comes up in the conversation. Are you comfortable with that?
I'm happy to do whatever the chair wishes to do. Yes, and thank you.
Thank you, Senator Clay. I love the way you think. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Connor or Cassiopeia? And you have 2 full-time employees, I saw, too. And just a quick question, how many barbers do you have in the state of Kansas? I'm pretty sure, Connor, you might have mentioned that, or Cassiopeia?
We actually just had an exam over the last weekend, so we just got quite a few handful of more. We're averaging around 1,700 barbers right now, and we have, I want to say 680 shops, and then we have 9 barber colleges, and we just got contacted for 2 new college prospects.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I have. All right, I believe for the sake of time, we need to move on. Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee recommend FY 2026 and FY 2027, the budget for the Board of Barbering as presented.
We have a motion, Senator Petty, seconds. Any more discussion? We had a great discussion, didn't we? So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Connor, for rushing in. And we know you just came from another one. So next up, let's do Board of Technical Professions. we have Joe Adams, and for us senators, we might recognize his voice. This is our former reader. So, Joe, let's do technical professions, and you have about 15 minutes to do both of them. All right. Thank you, Joe.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm here to talk about the Board of Technical Professions. In front of you are a few documents. I'm going to explain them very quickly. One of them is the budget summary, which was prepared by KLRD to give you a breakdown of their budget. The next one will be a copy of the agency's written testimony as proposed to their FTE amount, which they would like to increase by 1. There is some PBB information, which includes statistics and other information that the agency collects. And then the yellow page is the governor's recommendation as opposed to the SBC recommendation, which is against the proposed FTE. But to go back to the start, we're talking about the Kansas Board of Technical Professions. They are created to maintain, they're a comprised body of architecture, engineering, geology, landscape architecture, land surveying, and they ensure that the board examines, registers, and provides ongoing oversight over licensees. On the first page, you can see that there's no SGF. This is all from funds created within the agency by fines and other such things. Moving past that to page 2 of the budget summary, you can see their proposed FTE change as well as the enhancement, the supplemental to associate with that. It is $86,000 as well as a $3,000 request for furnishings and equipment for that FTE. Turning to page 3, you can see a 10-year expenditure history of this agency. The only notable change on this sheet is the fiscal year 2027 agency, where the increase of about $90,000 is related to the FTE request, and naturally the FTE count goes from 5 to 6. Turning to page 4, you can see a breakdown even further by their state operations. They are 100% funded by state operations and fund their money within state operations. And to see a further breakdown of that, you can turn to page 5, where this is demonstrated by both salaries and wages, contractual services, commodities, and capital outlay. I'll note that the agency has been maintaining a contracted employee to handle front-end operations, and this is reflected in the fiscal year 2026 agency, or the green box column, where the $145,809 from fees and other services. This amount reflects the amount that the agency has been using to contract an additional FTE that's not approved within their amount. The employee pay, therefore, is reflective of that for the decrease from $342,000 to $304,000. Turning then to page 6, you can see the amount that they use for their expenditures by fund. Of course, they only have one fund, so it's all within one. Turning to page 7, you can see their fee fund analysis. Most of this is pretty straightforward just from reading it, but the only thing I'll note is the encumbrances tab from the fiscal year 2024. As the agency has explained to me, $71,000 of that is after the accounting system had closed in fiscal year 2024, and then in fiscal year 2025, before they were able to start the accounting system, an additional $14,000 was generated, meaning that about $85,000 existed outside of the system before it was counting, but is still counted by the system later. So some accountants could explain that to you better, and I'm sure the agency would talk about it more, but that is my understanding as it is currently. Turning to fiscal year 2026, I'm going to go through these by line items. This is the analysis of the budget as proposed for this year and was approved in fiscal year 2025. The first item is the amount that is approved currently. It's $870,715. If you look to the bottom, the request is the amount approved at $870,715. Line item 2 covers the contractual services change that I mentioned earlier in more depth, which, to read quickly, the agency reallocated approximately $40,000 to contractual services, as the previous executive director utilized contracted employees to support front-end operations. The agency has transitioned those functions to regular employment and plans to restore the associated funds to salaries and wages. Turning to section 3, or all other adjustments, this is how the agency has basically balanced their budget, or we call it Tetrising on occasion. They noted that rent cost increased due to higher state lease rates, additional funding for requested storage in the Land and State Office Building. The agency also plans to convert some storage to office space for the proposed fiscal year 2027 FTE position. The agency also had a higher billing rate for the Office of the Attorney General, and software licenses and data subscriptions also had routine cost adjustments. They also offset these by having lower intergovernmental postage as they shifted to email platforms like SharePoint. Turning then to page 10, I'm going to review the fiscal year 2027 analysis, which has the actual request for the FTE better explained. Again, going by line item, the first one is the approved amount from fiscal year 2025. The amount was $875,120. Of these, to look at line item number 4, that is the 2025 legislative pay plan. Because this is a biennial agency, their amount is approved 2 years into the future. That's 2027. When the budget was drafted, this amount was omitted by mistake. So this amount is already statutorily guaranteed to the agency, and that amount is $10,396. As was previously mentioned by the committee, there were global motions to remove multiple requests from agencies. One of them included enhancements. The legislative pay plan was kept out on purpose. Therefore, this amount is currently inside of the SBC's motion. The other 2 items were removed by the global motion. These include the assistant director position at $86,000 and the furnishings and equipment at $3,000. So if we endorse the SBC position, to be clear, that would not include the FTE and it would not include the furnishings, but it would include the legislative pay plan. Ultimately, the agency's total request is $974,516. Looking again to their contractual services and all other adjustments, these are very similar. Section 5, the contractual services, does indeed include the $40,000 adjustment between contractual services to salaries. And then the number 6, all other adjustments, includes much of the same, which goes into further detail here. But I'm going to end my analysis here just to move on. With that, I'll take any questions.
And Joe, do you have someone from the agency here with you as well? Or do you bring them up and you introduce yourself and then we can ask questions to both you and Joe. So welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Brad Parker. I'm Executive Director for the Board of Technical Professions.
Well, welcome to the committee. So Senator Fascadeau, whoever you'd like, or Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you said a certain dollar amount wasn't included, but it would be later. How and when?
So if I understand you right, if this is in reference, or sorry, Madam Chair.
You go.
The legislative part.
Yes, the legislative pay plan was an amount approved in 2025, but biennials they have their budgets approved 2 years into the future because they're a regulatory nature. It's under statute. I'm not sure why, but the important part is that when they draft the budget bill in 2025, they did not account for the pay increase for employees in 2025 to 2027 because all other agencies only had to do to 2026. So that amount was just inadvertently included for 2027, and now agencies have brought that to the legislature to remind them, I guess, of prior statute, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Joe. And I have a quick question for you. I do not think we're going to have time to get to the Board of Cosmetology. Could you come back tomorrow morning, and will we still be within your timeline to get it to Ways and Means? Yes.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to hear you say. So, okay, so then we'll spend the rest of the time for questions with this, and we won't hurry through cosmetology because that might be the same topic thought that you might have, Senator Clay, so we can have more of a discussion tomorrow. Because Randy, we have post-audit coming to us tomorrow to give us a couple updates, so we'll just cut them short. So, and then Joe will make you work a little faster for tomorrow morning. You come back with us tomorrow morning? Okay, wonderful. So, all right, Senator Payne.
So on the contractual position, if I'm understanding this correctly, you are asking to convert it to a full-time position. You have, which is it?
So last year, we were down to 4 FTEs, and my predecessor filled the 5th FTE with a contractual position. There were several reasons there. Able to get someone into the office quicker. The hiring process when you go through a placement agency is a little quicker. They had kind of a built-in probationary period. We were able to ascertain if the contract person, was someone we wanted to convert to a full-time regular state employee. So the spending on contractual help, staff supplementation, if you will, was for various reasons. One of them was the agency at the time was shorthanded. They needed the help. They needed the help quickly, and so they went the contractual route. We have since hired a full-time person, regular state employee. to do that role. And so we're back up to the 5 authorized FTEs, and we're asking for a 6th in FY '27, but it's a different position, different role.
Oh, okay. So, I was looking back at the FTEs, and so, yeah, the 27 is an increased FTE. So when, under the tool, is the adjustment, I see that's 22,958. That's under all other adjustments.
Senator, to be clear, are you talking about page 9 on the fiscal year 2026 analysis?
Right.
And then your question was, what is the number for 22,000?
Yeah, or what does that cover?
So this is the balancing of their budget effectively. If you add those numbers together, they come out to 0. This is the transition of funds. One, it's the contractual service amount of 40,000 between basically like sections of their budget to cover, and then reductions in other areas to balance out. This includes things like a reduction in intergovernmental postage by switching to items like SharePoint, an increase in request for the Attorney General's office, an increase for rent for the building that they use. But the agency has helped balance these out by reducing funding in other sections. So mostly the change in 22,000 is the budgeting application that we use that indicates how the agency is spending their funding and which source. So the contractual services is more like a categorical budgeting item, which can be referenced even further on page 5, where these are broken down by salaries and wages. Next one will be contractual services, then commodities, and then capital outlay. All others would be salaries and wages, commodities, and capital outlay. Just one of them would be contractual services, which had the highest increase, which is why it's noted on the agency changes.
So, Joe, is that 40, so then on page 11, under other changes, is that 40,000, that's the agents, is that to cover the 6th position?
So this is again on fiscal year 2027 this time. The agency's previous executive director had put that 40,000 change into their budget application in fiscal year 2025. So that carried forward into this year. So I'm sure that the current agency director, who is Brad Parker, would like to change that so that it would reflect what they're doing going forward. But since this is an approved budget, these are the numbers we have to work with. To your ultimate question of, is that reflected in there? Yes. For number 6, with all other changes, this would include the adjustments made within their budget. Line item 5, the contractual services, describes that $40,000 switch between budget categories. But it does not cover the FTE that they're requesting. The request for the FTE would be an adjustment to their salaries and wages category, but it's detailed more in depth on page 10 under line item 2.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe or Brad? Okay, I don't see any. Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee recommend FY '26 and FY '27, the budget for the Board of Technical Professions as presented.
And Senator Bowser seconds. Any discussion? Oh, I'm so sorry, Joe. I missed you there.
Just to be clear, does that endorse the SPC's position or does it not?
Yeah, we accept the position.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a motion we've used in the past years. So if you'd like us to tweak that in the future to make your job easier,
I was
you
just checking
tell us.
because as
Okay.
presented would be what the agency requested. So
Yes.
that's the only reason I'm checking.
And this is, Brad, did you want to say something? Okay,
No, I had
perfect.
the same question.
All right. So as presented, yes. All right, so second, Senator Bowser. Discussion, all right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Brad. So Joe, we'll see you in the morning. You'll be first up at 9:30, and we'll go through cosmetology. Thank you. And Senator Clays, I did check, February 4th is the last day to introduce bills, unless you'd like to introduce it in an exempt committee, but if you'd like to pursue your idea for discussion, we can introduce it here and get the conversation started for next year. All right, so that's your deadline there. All right. Well, committee, thanks for your good work, and we'll pick up where we left off tomorrow. And we have 2 reports from the post-audit agency for us. Thank you very much.